Welcome to Moments with Vivacious. It is always exciting to be before you. I want to talk about the hot topic today. Everybody wanted to talk about it, so I was thinking about it. And I said, let me get some other people's opinion. It's always good to have more opinion than your own. And I went on Black Nurses Rock. I want to rock them out because they have a lot of good information. Their Facebook page gives a lot of good information, whether you're a nurse or not. And it'll be good. It'll be just good for you to have some of that information if you want to go and join that page. Well, I was surprised that I had 2 full days, and I haven't checked today yet, but 2 full days of hours of response on Roe versus Wade. Even when I put it on my Facebook page and I discussed it at work, it all comes down to a religious, your spirituality has a background in helping you make that decision. Is where you are spiritually. I want to say that some people was really religious about it and saying that anybody who had an abortion was going to go to hell. God was going to condemn them. He hates it. And of course he hates it. He hates all sin. But that's why he sent his son to die for us. And if abortion made you a murderer, I want you to know God created you and he still loves you. The perfect example is Paul, who did a greater work in building the Christian church than Paul. But Paul was a murderer. And some people thought that abortion was murder. That mother had no right to decide for that life. It brought a lot of questions out in me. That child should have a part in the decision. I thought that part, the person who said that, you way off. Because even after the child is born, he will legally not have any say-so that parent signs. Some people spotted life. They said a couple of us had the experience as nurses, as pediatric nurses of 10-year-olds, being impregnated by a family member. Should that child be forced to have a baby? A lot of people thought, let's put the baby up for adoption. And there are families that are willing to adopt children. But so many personal thoughts came in with putting the baby up for adoption. She should go through having the baby and let someone adopt it. I brought up the subject of the 10-year-old that I had was a very little girl. She had no hips. She was a little girl. How could a man put in his mind to have sex with her, nevertheless the uncle? Yet the family tried to avoid prosecution of the uncle. And the grandmother said she would raise the baby herself. But I was sitting there thinking, how is this child? This child cannot pass a baby through those undeveloped hips. There's no way. I had a baby myself. And I was just thinking, there's no way. How is this child? If she goes to term, she would definitely have a C-section. Some people thought, good. Yeah, that's a good idea. To do away with the right to have an abortion, because now people might use real birth control. Some people thought the only right that mom had to decide was if she goes to bed with the man or not. If you slept with the man, let me tell you, they was plain in how they wrote it, but I'm not gonna say it like they wrote it, okay? If she had sex, then she could have made the decision not to have sex. So once you make the decision to have sex and you're pregnant, then you should have the baby. But then another person brought up the decision, well, these little girls didn't make a decision to have sex. They didn't even know sex. Some women are raped and even raped by family members. And of course, some people said, and I'm telling you, it was a strong line, religion and not. And it ended up being a 2-day war. A 2-day war. Of course, foster care. Give up the baby for foster care. Foster care came up. There was also a war over the foster care. And you know, everything about it was so real to me because I experience it every day. Foster care is good for some children, and for some children it's not. Foster care is not infallible. And a lot of times we say, well, let's get those foster care workers, those DFACS workers, I don't know what you call it in your state, but here in Georgia is DFACS. Let's get those DFACS workers. They're not doing a good job. Well, they're way overloaded in DFACS cases. There's so many children on DFACS cases. I don't think I heard anybody say, well, if the mom was on drugs, because you know, sometimes women on drugs give away their bodies for drugs or sell their bodies for drugs. So that child is going to come into the world addicted to drugs. So do we want to omit at that point that drug addiction is an illness and we're going back to drug addiction is a decision that mother could have done differently? Just asking. One lady said conception happens at the time, the life happens at the time of conception. Once you conceive, then it's a baby. The question came up, is that baby viable on its own? If the baby was born at 6 weeks, whenever they say they have a heart, that's the average. It could be before and it could be after. But the baby have a heartbeat at 6 weeks old. If the baby was born, if it was a life, could it survive on its own outside of the womb? And a woman is 6 weeks pregnant. I'm afraid I believe that answer is no. But does it make it right to end that pregnancy because you don't want it? Some people felt strongly, their religious beliefs felt strongly, if that baby had developmental issues and would have serious mental health issues or physical deformity, should that mom have the baby? They felt like, yes, she should still have the baby. Well, let me tell you how I feel. I feel like, first of all, this should not even be a law. What does politics have to do with a woman having a baby? I do believe very much so that it is a spiritual decision. Because everything we do, whether it's good, whether it's bad, we're going to have to face God one day. But that's my belief as a Christian. Everybody knows I'm a Christian. But it doesn't mean my decisions and what I feel over and supersedes anybody else's. It's how I run my life. I truly believe that it has no business being a law, that it's between a woman and her God, because he's the only one she's going to have to answer to. I do believe that if a woman gets pregnant, so often we leave out men, and a man spoke up. He spoke up in a conversation, because I asked, he was the one who said it, and I always thought it. Should the father be a part of the decision? I was so glad he said that. The father should have a decision. So I said, do you think if the father made that decision to say, I think you should keep the baby, do you think he would take the baby? And I was so proud when his answer was, I did. So I believe that if a father is there, that a woman should not have an abortion separate from him. But that also brings us to the point that we should have responsible sex. Sex is not a fun trip. Sex is not a day plan. Because these things could happen, because your whole world could change. You've given away everything, men and women. We don't understand. We think men are totally disconnected. But that's why so many of them are so messed up, because they've been from woman to woman to woman, and it just messes up their minds. You know, how can you think responsibly? Sex should not come without a commitment. And the fact that if you do become pregnant, then y'all have a decision to make. So I think the government should not even be a part of abortion or not. Just like somebody, everything is abortion. When it's looked at medically, whether the woman's body passed the baby on its own, or the woman have a miscarriage and her uterus is not clean, they have to go in and clean. It's the same procedure, and they're right. You know, they're absolutely right. But what I'm most afraid of is women gonna have abortions anyway. And when they did those backdoor abortions, women died of sepsis. Babies were all messed up because the baby didn't abort, but all the things that was put in her uterus to destroy the baby didn't kill the baby, it just deformed the baby. And you know, what is the real point of this becoming a law and coming up after 50 years? I see a bigger picture. And it didn't start with abortion. They started first with our voting rights. Voting rights that we have voted for. The people of America have already passed their opinion. The majority had already voted. And they came back. We had almost a whole nother civil war over voting rights. A lot of legislation and time and lives, and people suffered and died. It amazed me how the country didn't turn over on that. Because once we didn't turn over on that and we let them get away with that, now they're going to do Roe versus Wade. They've reversed that. And let me tell you, it's going to keep us distracted for a long time. That post went on, right? It might be still going on. I didn't check today. It may still be going on, but they had to bring up Roe versus Wade so they could sneak in everything else they wanted to do. But what they don't understand is this. They're destroying the very fabric, the very foundation of our nation. Destroying it. Where will our nation be in 5 years when they're destroying everything it stands for? We will not have a democracy. And it's sad to say, yes, we can say the Republicans are desperate, but the Democrats are desperate too. And unfortunately, the system that was set up to make sure everybody's opinion was in and that this country would work and be here forever has become its own enemy. We're fighting ourselves. And if we don't do something about this as a nation, we won't have a nation in just a minute. And I saw it all coming. And that's why we have Vivacious Speaks the New American Revolution. And Moments with Vivacious is a very big part of that. Because Moments with Vivacious meet people at the core. And right now, I'm looking for someone to come in and we have a discussion, each of us on both sides, without fighting, that we can come to an agreement. But I do believe if the people have already voted, and even 50 years ago, the civil rights movement was 50 years ago or more. You understand what I'm saying? We're giving up the people rule the nation. And I pray that we can draw the people of America together, because our voice is much bigger than Democrat and Republican. And our spiritual lives, why they say churches and states separate? The government have no business. Whether we're going to hell or whether we're going to heaven, who knows? Because nobody knows the mind of God. Who can counsel the mind of God? So I believe we have to let people face God for things that are of God, for the spiritual things in their spiritual life. And we need to try to come together. And I tell you, if we put enough pressure on politics, we can have our country back. Thank you for listening, and welcome to Moments with Vivacious.